in the discourses that happen in Rojava or in the movement in general, how much of it kind of like brings in, you know, like the things that we are used to in anarchism, whether those are names like fucking whatever, or socialism, and how much is kind of like the remaking of knowledge so that it is kind of really their own. Does that make sense?
Can we, like, if there are a couple of more questions, you know, take them all at once, and then, you know, if it's not going to be a problem for you. Yeah.
A question that perhaps should go near the end, but I raise it now so we can think about it. And that's about when we organize practical actions, especially protests, what should be the demands? That is, demands for what we oppose and demands for what we support. I mean, for example, already there have been many protests which raised the simple slogan, Turkey, stop supporting ISIS. And perhaps there should be some other governments named. If we have evidence that the UK government has been supporting ISIS indirectly, we need clarity about that. Which government should be accused of supporting ISIS and therefore stop supporting ISIS? But also positive demands, in particular, lift the ban on the PKK, and perhaps that the world should recognize a particular administrative unit in Rojava as the legitimate authority for the purpose of being able to import essential items such as medical equipment for the purpose of financial transactions, perhaps even for selling oil. I don't know. That's for them to decide. But we heard already that there's a serious problem of being cut off materially from the world because there is no authority recognized by other governments, by banks, and so on. So we need clarity about what should be the demands that are to be made when we organize protests.
I can take one more question and then maybe you can just start answering if there is. No? Okay.
There's not other questions?
Not right now.
No.
Or, yeah.
Perhaps the most inspiring part of all this that's been touched on is just the possibility that the Rojava Revolution, that the model of secular, feminist, multi-ethnic community that's self-organized, that it could extend into other parts of Syria, assuming the regime starts to collapse in other parts of the region. I'm just wondering how much that vision of a revolution which goes beyond the current borders and possibly beyond the borders of Kurdistan, how significant a part of your dream that is, because obviously that would be something a lot of us could immediately relate to, the idea that maybe we will be hoping for a revolution for quite a while now, and if it was even vaguely possible that it started in this part of the world and we can help it move across the rest of the planet, obviously a bit of a dream, but I'm just wondering how much that means to you.
Can we just answer these three questions because it will be fast for them to
Okay. Well, first of all, the model in Rojava is not something has been practiced just in latest 2 years. There is already in the ideology of PKK and create a society where the local governing, the autonomous democratic autonomy should be placed, and it's very important to create that model in the Middle East. They have already one practical experience from that. It's from 1977 when PKK militants, when they go to an area to save, to rescue a local people from some people who are suppressing them, the thing they do, they make a revolution in that city called Hilvan. The first thing they do is that they put the woman as a mayor in that place.
As a mayor?
Yeah. So they give the power, local governing power, to the people there. They create different councils and committees where they can start to speak what's the problem with the city. So the aim is always to make less centralized model. So this has been the target all the time, even if PKK has always said that in the beginning that they want to create an independent Kurdistan. But the main core, the main content, the structure of the model they want to create has been democratic autonomy. What they have done in Rojava is they have created a social contract where there is more pluralistic, less centralized, less authority of the religious authorities to the public places, less militarized model. And the reason for that was that because there was a need, a unity of the different people who lives in the area who were under attack of different gang groups in Syria. So the closest they have come today is to create less centralized system, more representation of women in the area, which was exactly the similar they have tried in 1977. So the people there has always had a desire for freedom, because people in West Kurdistan, they have to face a massacre in 2004 under the Assad regime. So the need for and the desire for peace and democracy has always lived in their hearts, and that's why they have managed to organize themselves very fast, militarily, politically, institutionally. So what they have created in a very short period, they have created councils, communes, and committees, commissions, who take different issues, different problems in the society and discuss, and later make a decision. So they always say in this model that it's the people who makes the politics. It's not the politicians who makes the politics. The politician's job is just to make the administrational work. It's up to people to do politics. So this is what's going on in Rojava. It's the people who make their own decision, and by doing that, they have something what we call more participation democracy, not majority democracy, but more like participation democracy, where there is an important part of the society represented by Turkmens, Arabs, Armenians, Kurds. So, which gives us also a signal of what kind of pluralistic model it is. But this is also giving an idea how people can live without having a state, because today many people who are struggling, they are thinking that state is the best option and the latest and only option to be independent. So what Rojava model has proved that there is possible to live among each other without having state bodies, you know, because they make their own decision themselves. Nobody's coming to that area and telling them this is how we are going to do. It's the people who decide. So the representation of different people from different nations, different beliefs, has been the most important part of the council, which the assembly they have created in Rojava. And this gives also a sign that this is possible, this can be implemented in other places in the world, because we are not so much different from each other. We have belief values, we have cultural values, we have different values which needs to be protected, but it needs to be represented in a constitution in a way where people can feel equality. Like, this is not what's happening in Turkey. When you look at the constitution of Turkey, in the first article, is that you are born here, you are Turk, Turkish is the language you have to speak, and there's a space between religion and the state body, but the fourth article says that you cannot change the first three. So it's closing door for any democratic development in Turkey. It's closing door for identity question, religious identity, nation identity, because it says you are Turk. It's closing door for the people who have different beliefs, especially Alevi people have this problem. And it's closing door for elimination of nationalism, because nationalism has been used the main instrument to create nation states. So this is what we are trying to eliminate in Rojava model. Any kind of nationalism should be eliminated, because this is a tool which we think that capitalism is using in the Middle East to create a nationalism, and by that people are just forced to think that state is the only solution. So this has been neutralized in Rojava model, and many people ask what kind of border you want if you want to have autonomous, democratic autonomy in each country. If you look at in Europe, like for example, if you travel between Belgium and Netherlands, there is a border, but there's no problem to cross that border. But in Turkey, Iran, and Iraq and Syria, there's a minefield between these borders. So there is not possible to cross that border peacefully. So what we have trying to say there should be a democratic autonomy in each part of these countries, but there shouldn't be either any problem to cross this border, because Kurds needs to meet their own people in other parts, but this is not what they meet. So this is how it has been in the history in 100 years, that the assimilation politics has been based on dividing Kurds as much as possible, create much distance between as much as possible. So this idea has been eliminated in Kurds' thinking, and Kurds has been more closer to each other. So when we think about independency, we don't think it should be necessarily separate yourself between another countries. So that's the reason that it's very necessary to create a national congress in Kurdistan, where we speak about these issues. What should be security issue in Kurdistan? How should we manage to make it secure for the people? How should we share the resources in Kurdistan? Should it be in the need of the companies who are coming and making investments there, or should it be in need of the people who lives there? Like for example, there's a water problem in Syria and Rojava, but Turkey has used the water problem as a politic to make a pressure, even in Syria, even before the war, even the time when they wanted to send Öcalan out of Syria in '98, the government made the pressure and said, I'm going to cut the water if you don't do that. So the resources beyond the borders, how the policies should be like that. how should the women's question should be solved? Like a friend said, there's still conservative and feudalism going on. People who are underage are getting married. The rights of the woman is not equal as it should be. So this is what is needed to be discussed. One of the subjects, but not in the frame of how we should divide ourselves, separate ourselves from other peoples in the Middle East. This is not the Rojava model the social contract is based on. It's based more on less centralization, less militarization, more pluralistic, and more participation of the people in the area where they can discuss, and more representation of different people from different beliefs, and of course a self-defense mechanism. Kurds has been accused in Rojava, if you don't support the opposition, then you support Assad, you know. But this is totally. I mean, this cannot be accepted. If you are protecting yourselves against attack, and if you don't choose the vision of the opposition, if you don't choose the vision of Assad, that doesn't mean that you are supporting Assad in that way. So the third path, which Kurds have represented in Rojava, has been presented to the public opinion several times, but the public opinion, especially when I was in a forum, preparation for the World Social Forum, when we presented Rojava model, they said this is just a science fiction. It will not happen. So, but we always said, we don't ask if things are possible or not. What we ask is things are needed or not. The women's liberation, is it needed or not? Yes, it's needed. So you don't ask if it's possible or not. So you should go and do it. You should get organized, and you should bring the facts about what's going on in the area. The same with freedom of expression. So a lot of people had to sacrifice their lives in the area because they believed in this model. They believed that in the future it will be possible to live in a democratic autonomy model. And why do we say democratic autonomy and not autonomy? Because there's already autonomy models in the world. I've been living in Norway for 20 years. There's already an autonomy in the north part of Norway for the Lak people, the Sami people. They have their own parliament, and they have their own system. They have their representation in the Norwegian parliament too. But how much democracy is included there is discussable. There's already confederal models in the world, but how much democracy it is discussable. So more participation of the people, more people joining, making their politics, instead of pointing one person and say, this is my representative, and go and decide everything for me. So more participation of women, then we can speak about the democratic model. Or else you can have an autonomy, but if it is so centralized, if there is so many militarized power, it's useless.
Thank you.
Zainab, Agif, do you want to add, or have?
Well, in terms of the constitution there, not so much, but I can discuss the demands.
Yeah.
I mean, this could be, and also Ardalan, you add anything we need to. So the demands are really both political and humanitarian. So we can divide that into two. And also, when we're making demands here in the UK, we just have to think about who we're making these demands to. If it's the government that we're appealing to, or if it's the people that we want to also inform by making these demands. So the most important thing, as David Graeber mentioned earlier, but also I'm sure it's been mentioned several times here, is the delisting of PKK. Because that PKK being prescribed as a terrorist organization really almost in every case stops any political avenue as entering those political avenues. And the recognition of the Kurdish autonomy, democratic autonomy in Rojava is another thing. Secondly, a demand that needs to be made. Thirdly, so it's recognition. It's recognition. So it's in a sense the world states. Let's say there's this coalition fighting against ISIS. It can start with them who could use the Rojava model as a way of resolving the conflict in the region as well. So it's really appealing to all the countries in the world to recognize the Kurdish autonomy there, and also making it clear that it's actually very different to the Kurdistan regional government in Iraq. Because I think there is some misconception about what the PYD politics stands for and what the Rojava revolution means. It's not just about establishing a Kurdistan or independent region. It's on the contrary, it's a co-federal system that sets a model for the rest of the Middle East, where you have an area with different ethnic minorities living there, but because they've always been ruled by an elite group or a minority group that's not representing everybody's rights equally, but just representing the interest of their own religious group. Or it could be that they're working with the allies as such and representing their interests. So it's making this demand that it's first of all we need to, and I think this kind of meeting is important for planning and how we're going to do this, but educating people about what is really happening in Rojava, and then getting the rest of the world to support the recognition of what's being experimented there and what we're trying to create there. So these two things politically for the Kurdish movement is very important. In terms of what demands we need to make from here to help the Kurds in the region, but also to beat ISIS, I think it's very important that we appeal to the Islamic communities to stand out, which is something that's been lacking at the moment. Islamic countries, like, okay, we're saying it's not just saying to Turkey, Iraq, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, those countries alike, to stop supporting ISIS. It's beyond that. It's about condemning what they're trying to achieve and bringing out the key figures in the Islamic community in all these countries to actually speak out against what ISIS is trying to do. This has been lacking. It's not been sufficiently publicized if they have been speaking out. Because we know that ISIS has a very strong propaganda machine, and they're constantly trying to recruit more people, but there's no one going against them and saying, look guys, these guys don't join them, they're in the wrong, the Islam that they're trying to portray or thrive in that region is not the real Islam, or they're not representing Islam. So I think this kind of appeal needs to be made to the governments, because I'm not sure if the governments are doing sufficient work on this. I don't know. We appeal to communities.
Well, they're frightened of being accused of being Islamophobic.
Yeah, I mean this is an interesting
You're not
point.
even allowed to say that. It's so totally right off.
But it's not. This is what we. Yeah, exactly. We have to just show that actually, if Islamists come out and say this is not Islam, Islam is actually good, and if they show, we're trying to show that Islam is good. What these guys are trying to do is not real representation of Islam, and there isn't enough discourse there. And there's the. I'll add one more thing, and then if there's anything else on the political side, there's a
legitimate authority to recognize the legitimate authority for the purpose of importing medical equipment.
Yes, I was just going to come onto the humanitarian side of things, because we've been asking for the PYD and has been asking for a humanitarian corridor to be made through Turkey, because at the moment it's extremely difficult to take through any humanitarian aid into the region. For the Kurdish charity Hevasor sends things from here. It takes about 3 weeks to deliver a truck or pass through a truck from the border, when it could just take 3 hours at maximum. So we need to put, to get this political authority and this needs to be the coalition forces as well, and anybody else who takes the issue seriously, to create this political authority and to put pressure on Turkey to allow for this humanitarian corridor to be formed. You know, it's like you are easily allowing for ISIS militants to pass through, but you're not allowing for humanitarian aid to pass through. In everything we do, we have to show how we can the Turkey has already done a good job at delegitimizing itself, but we just need to point out this to Turkey, and we need to put pressure on Turkey in every single platform we can, that they, the vision that we have of Turkey is really completely transformed. I mean, for us it's different, but for the rest of the Western world, they're only really getting to see the true face of Turkey only recently. Lots of people don't know about what the Turks have done to the Kurds or all the ethnic minorities in the area.